Hey y'all, Data Guy here. And today I have a viewer request video where I'm going through some of the top elementary data observability tools in the market. Now, if you're not familiar with what elemental data observability is, it's a foundational practice of continuously monitoring, diagnosing, and ensuring the health, reliability, and integrity of an organization's actual data assets and pipelines at the table and column or record stream level. It goes beyond just, hey, traditional monitoring of did this workflow complete successfully, or quality checks by actually tracking key dimensions such as freshness, your volume and distribution, our expected row counts or value distributions changing, schema changes, have structures or types shifted, and lineage, and what upstream sources and downstream consumers are impacted if there's a failure. And then also, this is all really to enable root cause analysis and automated anomaly detection where deviations occur. So that's what I'm going to go through today. If that sounds relevant to what you're looking for, stay along with me, and let's go through some of the top tools in this sector. So the first tool I want to talk about is fittingly called Elementary. And so Elementary is a elementary data observability platform, and it's really built especially for analytics and data engineers, and has a very strong DBT native positioning. So it'll integrate with your DBT flows, help you catch data issues like freshness, like volume, like a schema change. You can see that with their kind of AI-powered observability tool layer on top of it. And also will help you to perform impact analysis, understanding, hey, what's happening when something fails, and helping you then resolve those issues faster. So some of its key features are, automated monitors for freshness, data quality, and DBT models. Also, actual schema change detection, downstream exposure, understanding what is going to impact what, and configurations are all code first. So you can really get in the weeds with this and customize the exact SQL checks or data quality checks that you actually want to integrate into this platform and then alert on. So it's really good for if you are running a DBT powered flow where you say, hey, I'm working with a lot of DBT artifacts and models that I already have, and I just want to layer visibility on top of this. And it's also really good for data engineering teams where it'll integrate into CI/CD and monitor your data pipeline ingredients rather than just kind of the end result. And it's got an open source foundation. They do have their cloud tool, but there is the option to start out with an open source option, such as something I'm always a fan of. And on the downside is that the focus is pretty narrow. It's very, it can do things outside of DBT, but it's very much focused, on pretty much all of their marketing is focused on DBT models, transformation layer. If your stack has a lot of non-DBT sources, this fit's not really going to be really good. And even though there's UI in a cloud product, a lot of the setup is still very code centric. So you're going to need someone experienced with writing those kind of checks and balances. And it's also, lacks a lot of more enterprise features that you would expect from, a full cross framework platform because it's just so focused on DBT. Now, next in the lineup, we have Metaplane, now delivered by Datadog. And Metaplane is really aiming to be, a true end-to-end data observability platform where it's going to monitor freshness, volume, distributions, lineage, and have automated alerts for all of those different, states, right? And it's meant to be, relatively easy to set up, very much a cloud-forward product, and has a pretty quick time to value. Connects to a lot of the major cloud players, like Redshift, like Snowflake, Databricks, and makes it really easy to, hey, just drop this on top of those, start collecting this information, and not having to define a lot of the actual code and engineering work that goes into, more of a robust solution. It's got pretty transparent pricing, pretty good dependency and lineage and dependency views. You have really in-depth alerting capabilities as well, which is really nice. But on the downsides is that it's very much meant for enterprise, right? So it's not something you'd probably want to use as a really small team. It's meant to be very much, hey, we're a large team and we need to monitor all these many different tools. And also with that, initial setup is going to require a lot of tuning and might generate a lot of kind of noisy alerts unless you spend some time in stabilizing it. But it also is really good at capturing the middle of the road, so the most common data sources and data tools, but it's going to struggle with some of the more, kind of left and right curve, less common tools, because it's very much, cloud GUI driven product rather than something that's super customizable and extendable into really, diverse data sources. Now, the next tool I want to talk about is one you might not have heard of if you're not, really big in the enterprise data sphere, and that is Bigeye. And Bigeye is really meant to be, hey, your large organization, enterprise grade, all-in-one data observability platform where you have, column level, table level lineage, anomaly detection, monitoring, alerting, event management, adaptive monitoring for really whatever your business needs, and is a massive set of connectors and aims to really make sure, hey, you have a 360 view of your data, whether you're a business user or you're an engineer. And the pro of this is it's a very customizable platform. You can define all of your own custom checks, rules, and it's all SQL based. It's a very API first driven platform, so you can integrate a lot of external tools via APIs. So if you are an engineering heavy team who wants a lot of control over exactly how data is produced and consumed, really good option. And it's got a very rich feature set in that it'll cover end-to-end pipeline health, ingestion, transformation, data quality, lineage, and has a lot of guides and explainers on exactly how you can set up and deploy these. However, on the con side is the flexibility does require more setup. The code driven approach means you have to write the code. There's more rules that you're going to need to define rather than things just out of the box. It's also going to require more ongoing maintenance to make sure those connectors all stay up to date, and it's also pretty expensive. Enterprise features and that customizability is going to lead to a higher cost, and it's probably going to be overkill for more simple use cases, but it's really good after at a really large company. Now, the next tool I want to talk about is Soda. And Soda has kind of been an evolution that I've actually been pretty enjoying to see, which is that, started out as just very simple data quality checks, and now has become, a full data quality, data observability tool. Where you actually layer Soda on top of your workflows, and embed, obviously still embedding your checks within the data pipelines, but now actually having a Soda UI where you can monitor the results of those checks and find and resolve data issues across different workflows. And it's really friendly for code-centric teams. You're able to embed checks in your pipeline code. You can integrate that wherever you want it, with CI/CD, with actual data pipelines. You're going to get really strong engineering alignment because you can do it exactly how you want it to be. It's also open source. There is a cloud product, but again, there's also an open source option, which makes it really accessible for smaller teams that don't want to spend a lot of money on this. But even though it's cheap or free, there's got a pretty good UI and pretty good UX as well. Very easy to use, really easy to get started with. I've got other videos, showing exactly how to get started, and is just generally a really good lightweight tool. Some of the downsides are that it's really not going to be as feature rich as full stack platforms. It's very much focused on your well integrated data quality checks and monitoring those, but it's not going to have a lot of things around streaming lineage or scale anomaly detection. It's mainly about preventing issues rather than detecting them, and also very engineering centric. Even though it has UI elements, it's very much centered around writing and embedding these checks into your pipelines and then maintaining those definitions and rules. So if you're expecting a plug and play, discover everything automatically, you're going to be disappointed. There's a bit of manual configuration that's required before you're really going to see a lot of value from this tool. Now, the next platform me and my special guest, the data dog, want to talk about is Anomalo. And so Anomalo is, again, one of those platforms that's aiming to be, hey, your one-stop shop for all your data quality monitoring. And it's really focused around, ML-based and automated data quality monitoring and detection of issues. So you actually have out-of-the-box checks for things like freshness, volume, nulls, missing data, and then it has a deeper anomaly detection via ML that'll detect, kind of more complex issues. And really, the automation is probably the biggest draw, for teams that don't have the skills for setting up all the manual rule writing and more manual anomaly detection. Anomalo just provides out-of-the-box plug-and-play rules and ML-driven anomaly detection. That means you don't need to define these yourselves. And it also has a really good view for business users, integrating, hey, business user can understand what's happening in the back end without needing to go super deep. They can just see, hey, this is going to be on time, this isn't on time, or this is predicted to fail, and then they can go yell at that team. And it's also really good for just kind of the typical table issues like freshness, volume, or distribution changes. That's what Anomalo is best at. But on the other side, it's got less customization and less visibility into, very large scale or more custom pipelines. Its scalability and performance benchmarks at scale are a little unfavorable. And it's also got a lot of potential because, it's automated. It's got a lot of potential for noisy alerts and false positives because it doesn't necessarily understand your actual business logic. And costs might be higher too because it's meant to be a plug and play all in one. So you don't do the work, you got to pay for someone else to do the work. So if you want to, just hey, I want to have a very, out of the box automated tool for detecting these kind of issues, Anomalo might be good. But if you need a lot of customization, it's probably not the tool for you. Now, the last tool I want to talk about is Monte Carlo. And this is, one of those very expensive, one of those very enterprise grade premium tools for end-to-end data observability platform, covering, data quality, AI observability, alerting, lineage, impact analysis, really aiming to be, your one-stop shop for all your data observability. So not only elementary data observability, but also, the actual underlying performance of your environments. And it's got a ton of integrations. It's got a, pretty good UI for understanding and pulling data from all these different sources, very feature rich because it is aiming to be a very comprehensive data observability platform, across ingestion, transformation, downstream BI, analytics, and it's got a lot of large organizations that are using it and that are really bought in on it, right? It's a very popular tool these days in the enterprise space, but it's also very expensive. With a really good UI, alerts, root cause workflows, it's very intuitive, and you don't really need to build a lot of the functionality because the integrations already exist. It's also pretty expensive, and it's also going to be probably overkill for smaller or mid-sized teams. And it's also going to require a ton of effort into actually getting your environment stood up. You're going to need to tune monitors, even though they have integrations, actually getting those integrations to all play nice together and, getting that information from those other platforms is not always as easy as it seems. And also because of the breadth of information that's going to collect, you might get too many alerts or a lot of configuration overhead or just a lot of work for very little outcome. But if you're a really large scale enterprise, you need one-stop shop for all your data observability needs. Monte Carlo is a pretty good solution. And that is really all I have for you today. Now it's time to go take the data dog for a walk. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Data Guy out.